Good day. I'm back again, John here, and I just want to share a thought that's been running through my mind in the probably last couple of months in particular. You know, when we see a problem going on in our world, we tend to think politically. We think like we're Democrats, or we think like we're Republicans, but do we ever think like we're kingdom people? Because it's a totally different way of thinking. When you begin to think kingdom, then opportunities open up and people are released into it. One of the things I said quite a few years ago, I was teaching a little bit on finances. I said, you know, we've got people in America, for instance, who live on Social Security. And, you know, they're struggling where they are. It's like it's not meeting their needs. And they've retired, and it's like, have you ever thought you could take that same amount of money you get on Social Security and you could go down to some of these third world countries that are struggling, and that same money you can live like a king and you can do something for the Lord. You can, you know, you can minister to the people down there. And so with that in mind, just the other week, this sort of dropped into me. Why do we always focus on keeping the border closed or opening the borders right up? Because that's the only two options we've got, according to whichever political party you support. But see, we're not here to support a political party. We're here to manifest the kingdom of God. And you know, these people really don't want to leave where they're at. They don't want to leave their country. How do I know that? Because when they come here, they still think like they're in their country. And so it's like, well, why do they have to leave? Because they want a better life. Great. But that's what the kingdom's about. It's about teaching people to have a better life. And I was thinking about it, I thought, why don't the churches get together? Get a whole group of churches, maybe 5 or 6, and begin a fundraising venture and go into, say, one of these countries and buy up a large portion of land, and then from that begin to build, build a church first. And there I go, that whole mindset. To build a place where the people could gather to come to learn about God and to be taught, and then also teach them and allow them and you know, send short-term missionaries down where they would help these people build homes, build businesses, and they operate as a community. They set up their own bank, and so the homes that are built, they're paying off on, because it wouldn't be that expensive to build them, and then teaching them how to build a business, and through that, and so they build their own bank and they support, and then they can go and help do the same in another community, in another country. And so there are more ways if we think kingdom, if we think like the king thinks, because he's interested in them. All the nations are his. It's not just America, it's not just Australia. All the nations belong to him. And so we need to, Jesus said, go and disciple our nations. It's not about just getting people saved. It's about discipling the nations on how they are to govern the kingdom. And one of those areas where I teach, that the kingdom functions on the earth, as Revelation 11:15 says, that the kingdoms of this world, or the governing systems of this world that God set up originally, belong to him. And it's quite a teaching too, but it's basically that God established 3 forms of governmental authority: a family government, spiritual government, and civil, what we call civil government. But we always, when we think government, we're talking about, DC, the Congress, or your own capital city. But that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the kingdoms of this world. Luke reveals that Satan, when he was tempting Jesus, said, look, these kingdoms, they were given to me. If you bow down to me, I will give them to you. Jesus is saying, no, they already belong to my Father, and they will be mine. And so we find those three are mentioned when we look at that great promise of the Messiah's coming, Isaiah 9, where it says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And it says, and his name shall be called Wonderful. Oh, that's what we do. It's Wonderful Counselor. No, it is the Wonderful Counselor. The Counselor is one who gives advice to the king. And so if you understand the monarchical system, a counselor or to the king is called a lord. And Jesus is a lord of what? The church. And he goes on to say, his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God. God speaks of the nations, the ruling of the nations, and Everlasting Father, which speaks of family government. And so those three, that's why those kingdoms now belong to him, because he carries the name and the authority over those three governmental systems.